Right, give me a second. It's starting to transmit. There we are. Fantastic. So, okay, fantastic. So as I was mentioning, thank you very much for joining me. And let us continue with our advance. We had been discussing the reading section previously, and today we are going to continue with the different types of questions that you can find in the reading section, right? Because not yesterday, but last time we saw each other, we had discussed the general aspects of the section, and we had also seen the first type of question in the reading section, which was the vocabulary question. But now we're going to move on to the different type of questions that continue and basically complement that first type of question in the reading section, okay? So let me show you the presentation here, and let us go to the second type of question, which is called the purpose question, all right? So let us discuss this one first. All right, so what is the, I'm so sorry, what is the second question all about? The second type of question, it's a purpose question, all right? And this one will test your ability to understand why. Okay, pay attention to this word. It's a very important and crucial word. Why a certain idea or argument has been used in the text. They will ask you to draw conclusions about the information that has been stated in the passage. You need to locate the paragraph and read briefly to get the purpose. Again, you need to locate the paragraph and read briefly to get the purpose. I think there's somebody else who joined us. Oh, fantastic, Raisa. How are you? Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, pleasure to see you. Okay, so we are just starting with your classmates to discuss the second type of question in the reading section. Previously, we have seen the general aspects of the reading section and also the first type of question. So if you, if any of you has not been able to see the class and to rewatch it, please, I highly encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and look for that class, okay? Because it's very important for you to know all those general aspects and also the first type of question, okay? So let us continue today with the second type of question, all right? As I was mentioned, this is called purpose question. This is the second type of question you will find in the reading section. And this question basically asks you to identify and understand why a certain idea or argument has been used in the text. They will ask you to draw conclusions about the information that has been stated in the passage. You need to locate the paragraph and read briefly in order to get the purpose. So basically, as I say, whenever we speak in English or Spanish and we write in English or Spanish, we always have reasons in order to include sentences, right? For example, if we say something like, but why are you wearing shoes, right? That question, for example. Is there any reason why a mom expressing that particular question to somebody? It must be a reason, right? It must be a purpose that underlies that particular question. If we are writing, for example, and if I write, let's say in my diary, I write something like, dear diary, today I had one of the worst days of my life because I could not believe that I got 0 in my test, whatever. There is a reason why I am writing dear diary, right? Or there is a reason why I am writing, I had one of the worst days in my life. So in this question, you're going to be asked and requested to look for those reasons, because every single author, when he's writing a paper, an article, and this is, of course, a question about the reading passage you have read up to this point or that you have been examining, there is a reason why the author includes information. And you need to look for that reason, for that purpose. And when you find it, you're going to be able to respond to this question successfully, right? Let me show you an example for you to understand more. Let us please read this reading passage that we have on the right side of my screen. Please look at it. There is a portion of a reading passage. Let us read it together. It says, if true though, why did cold-blooded animals such as snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodiles survive the freezing winters and torrid summers? These animals are at the mercy of the climate to maintain a livable body temperature. It's hard to understand why they would not be affected, whereas dinosaurs were left too crippled to cope, especially if, as some scientists believe, dinosaurs were warm-blooded. Critics also point out that the shallow seaways had retreated from and advanced on the continents numerous times during the Mesozoic. So why did the dinosaurs survive the climatic changes associated with the earlier fluctuations, but not with this one? Although initially appealing, the hypothesis of a simple climatic change related to sea levels is insufficient to explain all the data. Fantastic. As you can see, this is the reading passage. Now, look at the question I have on the left side of my screen. This is the wording that the purpose questions are always going to utilize. So please pay attention. It says, why? So that is the way you're going to identify the question, okay? When you see why, it is asking you a reason for this, a purpose for this, then you know, okay, this is a purpose question. Why does the author mention the survival of snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodiles? So as you can see here, it's asking us, why did the author include this sentence? And this sentence is within our reading passage. If you notice it, it's right here at the beginning of the reading passage. It says, if true though, why did cold-blooded animals such as snakes, here's the sentence, right? Lizards, turtles, and crocodiles survive the freezing winters and torrid summers. Okay, so this sentence is within this particular sentence in our reading passage, right? So we need to find an answer that responds to the question, why did the author include this? There must be a reason, a purpose why he did it, right? So let us see the possible answers, and then I'm going to give you some criteria in order for you to follow it while responding to the question, right? Let's see the possible answer. It says, to argue that dinosaurs may have become extinct because they were not cold-blooded animals, to question the adequacy of the hypothesis that climatic change related to sea levels caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, to present examples of animals that could maintain a livable body temperature more easily than dinosaurs, or to support a hypothesis that these animals were not as sensitive to climate changes in the Cretaceous period as they are today. Fantastic. Let us see some recommendations in order for you to respond these questions successfully, okay? Whenever you identify a purpose question, you read, oh, it says why. Why does the author? Why is he mentioning this? Right? That word why suggests you, okay, oh, this is a purpose question. To effectively respond this type of question, you must ask yourself this question. How does the alluded portion affect the whole text? It might initiate, conclude, support, or discard something. For example, if I say, right, yesterday I had a talk with one of my friends, right? That is a sentence. And if I later continue, he asked me to give him a part of the homework I had done for the mathematics class. And that led me to a problem. Should I do it? Now notice, there is a reason why I mentioned that I had a talk with my friend, right? Because remember at the beginning of my expression, I said, today or yesterday, I don't remember, I talked with my friend. There is a reason why I mentioned all this. It was because I wanted to arrive to the point that I had a question or a problem. Should I give him my homework? Is this a moral failure? Is this good? Is this bad? So as you can see, there is a reason why I included the first sentence. Today I talked with my friend because I wanted to arrive to the point of questioning, should I give him the homework? Is this good? Is this bad? Now, sentences in any language always have a purpose. They initiate conversations, they conclude conversations, they support conversations, arguments, or points. They discard points, arguments, they discard things or they support things. So what you need to do is to think about that. What does it do? It initiates, it concludes, it supports, it discards something, it questions something, because sometimes sentences question, right? They are in this writing paper, or they are part of this exposition because they're trying to question, to object something, to think about it. How does this portion affect the text? What does it do? What does it do to it, right? Now, second, pay attention to the alluded portion's mode. It could be interrogative, exclamative, subjunctive, and so forth. This is very important, dear students, and I think this is going to be a very good time for you to go and re-study all the grammar that you learned when you were first learning English, and the professor talked to you about the sentence mode, right? And they talked to you about interrogative sentences, exclamative sentences, subjunctive sentences, indicative sentences. It is a good time for you to go and relearn that. Now, let me remind you, sentences are interrogative when they are asking and questioning something, right? Why are you wearing those shoes? Shouldn't they be red? Why are they white, right? We are questioning something. We do not agree with something, or we don't understand something, so we question. Why is this like that, right? Why? They can be exclamative if we say something like, hey, your shoes are white, right? Because we are trying to make a point. Maybe it was a terrible decision for that person to wear white shoes, and we're saying, hey, you're wearing white shoes, right? Come on, man. So we normally use exclamative sentences when we are trying to, as I say, make a point. Third, subjunctive sentences are the ones that we use when we are doubting about things in the sense of if they are possible, if we have uncertainty. For example, I may be, I'm going to go to the, I don't know, I may be the best student this semester. Probably, I may be the best student this semester. That is a subjunctive sentence. Why? Because I am doubting. I am in the sense of this is not secure. This is not certain. Could be, could be not. And indicative when you are making a statement that is positive and real. Your shoes are white. Your shoes are black. You are not wearing shoes. Indicative, right? We are indicating, describing something. Now, always think about these two different criteria before responding to this question. Why? Because let us apply these criteria to this sentence. Let us think about the first type of question, or excuse me, or the first type of criteria. Snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodiles survive the freezing winters and torrid summers. Now, after this, the author mentions this sentence that we are trying to understand why the author included. What did that sentence provoke? What does the author continue writing about? He says, these animals, turtles, lizards, turtles, crocodiles, snakes, are at the mercy of the climate to maintain a livable body temperature, right? Now, as you can see, it continues talking about their let's say their resistance. Now, second criteria, is this sentence an interrogative, exclamative, subjunctive, or indicative sentence? It is interrogative. So just because you know, for example, look at it, snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodiles survive the freezing winters and torrid summers, just because it is interrogative, you know for sure that the reason why the author included this sentence is because he's trying to question something, cuestionar algo. Just because you know the question is, the sentence is interrogative, you know, hey, he's questioning something. He disagrees with something, right? This question. Now, the point would be, what is he trying to question? If we know that the reason why he included this is that he wanted to question something, the next question will be, what is he trying to question? What is he trying to objetar? Now, that is why the second or the first criteria is very important, because if you read what comes immediately after the sentence we have, the author basically begins to talk about how these animals were super vulnerable. But even when they were super vulnerable to climate change, they didn't die because of climate change. And according to this theory that we are discussing in this reading passage, the dinosaurs died because of climatic changes. He says, hey, but these animals were super vulnerable, but they did not die. Nonetheless, as you can see here, dinosaurs were warm-blooded. That is to say, they were super powerful. They didn't need any special resistance to climate because they were warm-blooded. Instead, these other animals were cold-blooded. They were super vulnerable. Dinosaurs were powerful, but if they were more powerful than these animals, why didn't they die? If these other, why did these animals die? Why did dinosaurs die? If these other animals, snakes, turtles, lizards, that are super vulnerable, they are weak, if they didn't die because of climatic change, why did dinosaurs die if they are powerful, right? That is what the sentence is provoking. The author talks about the characteristics of these animals. So by analyzing these two particular criteria, then you can, of course, find the correct answer here, right? That in this case is the second one, to question the adequacy of the hypothesis that climatic change related to sea levels caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. This is the correct answer. Why? Because this is what the author is trying to express with this sentence. This is the reason why he expressed it, because he wanted to question the adequacy of the hypothesis that these climatic changes related to sea levels caused the extinction of dinosaurs. Because if they die because of these climatic changes, why didn't the weaker animals die? Snakes, lizards, turtles, they should have died, right? But they didn't. So this helps us to question the adequacy of this hypothesis. And that is what the author was trying to do. Can you see? You are just following two criteria. What is the mode of the sentence? And secondly, what is this provoking? What is the author talking about immediately after you have this sentence, right? And because of that, you come up with the correct answer. For example, the first one, is this the correct answer? To argue that dinosaurs may have become extinct because they were not cold-blooded animals. This is not true. Actually, in the entire reading passage, it never questions if the dinosaurs were cold-blooded or warm-blooded. It actually affirms that they were warm-blooded. Look at it. Some scientists believe dinosaurs were warm-blooded. It never says that they are doubting. No, no, no. They affirm they were warm-blooded. So if they were warm-blooded, why didn't they die? Excuse me, why did they die if they were warm-blooded and powerful? The third one, to present examples of animals that could maintain a livable body temperature more easily than dinosaurs? Not at all. Actually, the contrary is what the passage is saying, right? They say that these animals were actually less capable of maintaining their temperature than dinosaurs, right? So this is not the correct answer. So as you can see, the correct answer takes into consideration two things: the mode of the sentence, and secondly, what is that sentence provoking in the discussion? If you know those things, you know the correct answer. Any question, dear students? Lucia, Sergio, Raisa, something that I could clarify about this question?
I I have to practice, I think, because I know that you have to know that what kind of ¿cuál es el propósito of the portion that
The purpose. Yes.
purpose. If it's interrogative, explain, exclamative. So in this case, at first I thought that it was the third option to present examples, but I was confused for the. I thought that it was affirmative, so I get confused. I have to keep practicing on this part.
Yes.
For me, it's not as clear as possible, so I have to keep practicing.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Yes. It's a matter of practice, certainly. But as you say, if you understand that, well, you have to look at the modes of the sentence and also to identify what is that sentence provoking in the discussion. Then I think that the idea is clear. That what you have to do, it's clear. Of course, you're going to polish and perfect this through practice. But if the idea is clear, then we are fine. Sergio, Raisa, do you understand this? What you have to do in this second question, how to respond?
For me is confusing too. I think if we practice, maybe we can understand better.
All right.
And maybe other example could be better for us too.
Yes. Yes, fantastic. Thank you very much, Raisa. Yes, we're gonna practice. Don't worry. Actually, probably next class are gonna be it's gonna be basically practice. So don't worry. But yes, it's basically going to be done. All right, Sergio, any question? We're fine.
I think like Lucia, Raisa, we have to practice a lot.
Yes, certainly. Oh, fantastic. But for me, if you know what criteria you have to follow, if you understand that you have to look at the mode of the sentence and that you need to look at what effect is this provoking, then for me, that's it. Of course, you are going to learn to utilize this criteria in practice, but nonetheless, if you know what you have to do, that's it, right? For me, that's it. Very good. Third question. This is the TOEFL reading reference question. This is a very interesting question, okay? So let's talk about it. This is easier, don't worry. This is certainly one of the most difficult questions, I have to admit. The other ones are simpler, so don't worry. The third question. In reference questions, you will be asked to respond what does a specific word refer to in its context, all right? This is very similar to the vocabulary question, if you remind our first class, when we discussed the first type of question, the vocabulary question. It's very similar. The only difference is that this type of question is not going to ask you about nouns or verbs. No, it's going to ask you about the following grammar expressions. Look at it. It's going to ask you what a specific word refers to in its context. These words could be, look at it, subject pronouns, like for example, it, they, demonstrative pronouns, as these, those, this, that, possessive adjectives like it's or their, or other reference words like the former, the later, one, once, another, other, or others. All right, let me show you an example. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans can be traced back to the English and French fishermen. Let us read this passage, okay, together. It's on the right side of your screen. We're just going to read until the point where it says they and the end of that sentence. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans can be traced back to the English and French fishermen off the coast of Canada in the 1500s. They traded guns and other weapons for beaver fur, right? We're just going to read until that point. I'm going to explain you why, don't worry, but just until that point. Now, look at the question. It says the word they in paragraph 3 refers to, right? And then you have some options. As I say, the wording and the structure of this question, it's very similar to the vocabulary question, but as you can see, it's not asking you about verbs or nouns, right? Nouns and verbs are basically excluded from this type of question. When you see a question that is, as I say here, that is a reference word, they, those, one, another, other, others. If it asks you about a word like that, for example, in this case, they, a reference word, obviously, then you know, okay, this is a reference question, okay? So, well, basically, you have to understand what does this word mean in this context? That is to say, to what person, object, or thing is this word trying to point out to, or what thing or person is this word representing, right? That is the question. It is basically asking you to identify. This word is identifying or pointing out to a person, to an worship, to what? To what person, to what object, to what animal, to what thing? What is this word referring to, right? Now we have some options here. In this case, they, by the way, the word is highlighted, right? This is also going to happen on the exam. The word that they always ask you about in the vocabulary questions and reference questions, they are always highlighted, right? So don't worry. You're going to find that in practice, when we practice tomorrow or past tomorrow, all the questions like this one are always giving you the advantage of having the word highlighted for you to locate it easily, okay? Don't worry about that. Now, the word they in paragraph 3 refers to English and French fishermen, beavers, Europeans, or traits and characteristics. 4 options. Now, before we respond, let me give you again some recommendations and criteria for you to follow. And if you understand the criteria, for me, that's it. That is the purpose of the theoretical class. As you said, how to apply it, we're going to practice it in the practical classes. But this theoretical class is for you to know what to do. Now, how to do it, of course, we're going to practice it later. But what to do is what I want you to understand now, okay? What you have to do. So, for example, in order to respond to this question, you have to do the following. As your word will be highlighted, you must read 1 or 2 previous sentences to find the context and the reasoning train of the portion. First thing here, as you can see, there is a reason why we just read these 2 previous sentences before the word they that is highlighted. And you could actually read 1 more sentence if you want. Let's say the first explorers until 1530s. You could read this if you want. But now, there is a reason why. If you notice, this question is asking us about a very, very tiny part of the reading passage. So in order to understand to what person, animal, or object is this word referring to, you need to be very picky with regard to the content you are going to read. Because if you read the entire reading passage, maybe you're going to get confused and you're going to say, hey, but this other part said this other expression. So maybe they mean particular those elements or persons. But as I say, the only thing you have to worry about is the immediate context of the word. Because if this word they here means something, it will probably not mean the same here. For example, this word they doesn't mean the same as this particular word they. They here refers to other people. As you can see, this other they at the end of the passage. Here they sent us or they would. Those they represent other people. But you need to be conscious and you need to find what person is this word, the one that is highlighted, referring to. Okay, so just read two previous sentences and one, if you want, one after the highlighted sentence or the highlighted word in this case. Okay, do not read the entire reading passage when you have this type of question, right? For you not to get confused. Now, second thing, you need to identify and to find the context and the reasoning train, the idea of the portion. This is a tremendously important topic, so please listen to me. Whenever we are writing, speaking in English or Spanish, we always follow a logical order. Let me give an example. If I talked about this one, I'm planning to have a travel to Canada. Listen to my sentence. It's my first sentence. I'm planning to have a travel to Canada. Excuse me, a trip to Canada. Or I'm planning, let's say, to make it simple, I'm planning to travel to Canada. Or I'm going to travel to Canada. Even simpler. I'm going to travel to Canada. That is my first sentence. I'm going to travel to Canada. Then I will go to restaurants. Notice that I finished my first sentence, right? I finished my first idea. I'm going to travel to Canada. Then I move on to another sentence and another idea. Then I will go to restaurants, right? That will be a second idea or a second sentence. And I will eat hamburgers, sausages, and drink soda. As you can see, that will be a third idea, right? Let us think about it again. If I say, I'm going to travel to Canada, that is an idea, right? The first thing I mentioned, a first sentence. Now, if I say, then I'm going to go to a restaurant, that is a second idea and a second sentence. Third, then I'm going to eat hamburgers, sausages, and drink soda. That is a third idea. So in all this sentence, right? In all this sentence, I'm going to travel to Canada. I'm going to go to a restaurant and I will eat hamburgers, sausages, and soda. There are three different ideas, right? Three different parts in my sentence. Three different things that I had on mind. So in order to understand to what person, to what object, to what animal, whatever this word is referring to, you need to understand what idea was the last one that the author had in mind when he wrote they. I repeat, you need to understand, as I'm giving you here, the reasoning train, the idea that the author had in mind when he wrote the word. For example, let us reason about this sentence here. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans can be traced back to the English and French fishermen off the coast of Canada in the 1500s. Now, let us divide this sentence into its reasoning train, the different ideas in this sentence. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans. That is the first idea. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans, right? Now, the author is going to move on to a second idea that is going to make it more specific. Can be traced back to English and French fishermen off the coast of Canada. All right? That is a second idea. I repeat. Economic contact between Native Americans and Europeans. That is a first idea, right? Now, a second idea is that he says can be traced back to the English and French fishermen off the coast of Canada. And a third idea simply mentions when, in the 5500s. Now, as you can see, all that sentence divides into three different ideas or reasoning trains. Now, as I say, in order to respond correctly to this question, you need to understand what was the last people, because of course the word they referred to people, right? What was the last people that this author had in mind when he wrote they? So if you look at our ideas, how we have divided them, the last idea that the author had in mind when he wrote this word was French fishermen and English and French fishermen. Those were the last people he had in mind, because notice, at the beginning of the sentence, in the first idea, he talked about people, he talked about Europeans, but he talked about generic Europeans, any European. It could be, for example, Portuguese, it could be Spanish, right? He talks about generic Europeans. But in the second idea, after he talks about that, he mentions a specific European, English and French fishermen. Those are the last persons that the author had in mind. And he continued later with other ideas in 5500. So this word they must refer to the last idea the author had in mind. In this case, English and French fishermen. As you can see, there is an option here that says Europeans, but there is not the correct answer. Why? Because in the idea, in the reasoning train of the author, this was not the last people he had in mind. In this case, you have to look for the object, the person, the animal that the author had in mind before writing the word. In this case, English and French fishermen. Beavers, for example, is not even mentioned, right, in the reading passage until the point that it's being referred to. So this could not be the correct response. That is the reason why I tell you, don't read the entire reading passage. Just read 2 previous sentences, and if you want, one more after the word, but never the entire sentence, because by not reading, you're going to notice, hey, but beaver is not even mentioned, so this could not be the correct answer. Traits and characteristics as well. That is not mentioned until this point here. They, and before the word they, nothing is mentioned about traits and characteristics, so it could not be the correct answer. It's between Europeans and English and French fishermen. But as I say, Europeans was a past idea the author had, but what he had in mind when writing they was English and French fishermen. Do you have any questions, dear students, about this?
No, I think that this is so much clearer than the other question, the other type of question. This is very clear because you have a chance to read, and it's right there. The answer is right there.
Yes, exactly. Certainly, as I told you, the other one is very difficult. It is the actually, in my opinion, the most difficult type of question. Certainly, because you are trying to, even in our life, right? It's very difficult to find reasons why we do things, right? Hey, why did I do this, right? We always think that. So imagine moving that into an exam. It's even more difficult. So yes, but if you learned how to respond the other question, for me, it's fine. Of course, this one it's easier because you have to think about 2 different things. Reasoning train and context. What is the context of this sentence? Well, Europeans, and specifically French and fishermen. English, French, and English fishermen, right? Fantastic. So, what about you, Sergio, Raisa? Any question about this one?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
Fantastic. Raisa, what about you?
For me too. It's
All right.
much clearer.
Okay, fantastic. Very good. So there we are. Okay, so remind, how to identify this question? Well, you're always going to see that it asks you for a word, the meaning of a word, and it's not going to be a noun or a verb. When it is a noun or a verb that it asks you for, that is a vocabulary question, right? As the one we saw last time. Distant, for example. In this case, distant is an adjective, so it could also ask for adjectives. But when it doesn't ask for adjectives, for nouns or for verbs, then you know, oh, this is not a vocabulary question. This is what? This is a reference question. Number 4, inference question. Okay, this is the 4th type of question. This is actually a little bit more difficult, but it is manageable. Let's see. In TOEFL reading inference questions, you will be asked to reason and draw a rational inference that could be made out of a whole paragraph or a little portion. Okay. Do not forget that an inference, what is an inference? Very important. Is a conclusion or assertion that could logically follow from a determined action, event, or circumstance, right? Very good, fantastic. So let me explain easily. What is an inference? An inference is a rational conclusion you can make from information you have. For example, imagine that one of your friends that normally dressed with very colorful clothes suddenly comes to you always wearing white clothes. Excuse me, black clothes, always wearing a black t-shirt, black pants, black shoes. When that person usually in the past used to wear very colorful clothes, pink, orange, red, but now he always wears black clothes. What could you infer about that? What will be the inference out of that? You can infer, conclude rationally, logically out of that, that maybe that person sadly suffered the loss of a beloved person, right? That somebody near to him died, and he's wearing that because he's expressing his pain. Now, that is an inference because because of the information you have, this person in the past dressed very colorfully, but now suddenly dresses with black clothes. What can you infer? What can you conclude out of that? Hey, securely, this person suffered the loss of a very loved person. Sad. Now, what wouldn't be an inference? And what wouldn't be an inference would be something like some aliens came to his house and steal all his colorful clothes. Tell me if that is not an inference. Of course, it's not, right? Aliens came to his home and they steal all the colorful clothes and I don't know, t-shirts he had to dress, and now he just has its black clothes. That is, of course, absurd, right? Nonetheless, that is your imagination, and that is what I want you to distinguish. What is an inference and what is an imagination? Imagination is whatever you can think about, right? They came, aliens came to his house, they steal their colorful clouds. That is imagination. But an inference is something logical that the information you have suggests you. If you know, hey, this person used to dress colorfully, but now suddenly just with black clothes, and additionally, for example, you know that, and I have also seen that he published or he posted on his Facebook, I'm missing you, right? I'm missing you very much. What can you infer about that? That he lost a beloved person, right? But you cannot infer out of that information you have if he's dressing black clothes and writing on his Facebook, I miss you very much. You cannot infer that aliens came to his house and stole his clothes, right? No, you cannot infer that. You can imagine that, but not infer. Infer is logical. Something that the information you have suggests you, okay? So in this case, you are going to infer. You are going to infer. You're going to read a passage, and you're going to, from the information that the passage gives you, you're going to make a conclusion that is logical, rational, okay? Let us see. Let us read this. Until the 1850s, Herman Melville primarily published novels, including Moby Dick, which would later become one of America's most famous and beloved novels. His novels, however, had extremely low sales, and Melville had to quit writing novels because no publisher would agree to print his book. In an effort to make more money from his writing, Melville chose to publish some poetry instead. Poetry was extremely popular and sold well in 19th century America. So Melville expected to make a profit from his first book of poems. These poems, pay attention to this, however, were as unpopular as his novels and sold scarcely any copies, right? Look at the question. Which of the following can be inferred about Melville's poetry? Now notice, how can you identify this question? It will always contain the word inference. It can be in its past, it can be in its past tense, in its future tense, in its present tense, but the word inference is always going to be there. As you can see here, it's inferred, right? Which of the following can be inferred about Melville's poetry? Now, we have some options. It was not as well written as Melville's novels. It was written primarily in iambic pentameter. It did not yield a significant profit for Melville, or it was Melville's only possible way of making money. Before we respond, some recommendations. Don't forget that although you are asked to infer something, this doesn't mean you can separate yourself from the passage and let your imagination to fly, as I said to you. You must infer, yes, but you must do it only with the information provided with the passage or in the passage. Even if one option is a logically valid inference, let only the passage and its information to guide you. If you know something about the topic, not even that should be a parameter for you to infer. Important, this part. For example, maybe you are a fan of Herman Melville and you wrote all his novel and poetry. But if you know something external that is not mentioned in the reading passage about Melville or any other topic you find in your exam, never use it. Don't use your own knowledge to infer. No, let the passage, as I say here, let the passage and its information to guide you. That is what you have to look for. The information ETS is giving you, not what you know about Melville or any other topic, okay? Read the passage and let the passage suggest you what is going to be the inference, okay? Now, let's go response for response in order to find the correct one. For example, it was not as well written as Melville's novels. Could this be the correct answer? Well, let me tell you, no, it's not. Why? Because there is no a single portion in the reading passage that suggests you or that suggests to us that the quality of his writing was not good. Or actually, the quality of the writing of Melville's poetry and novels is not discussed in this passage. No, we never hear about how good it was or if it was bad. No, the only thing we listen about is that it was not well sold. That's it. So this cannot be a correct answer. Why? Because it cannot be an inference, something that the information does not suggest to you. And your information is the reading passage, and your information does not even talk about this. If you infer this, you are imagining, but you are not inferring. So remind, in order to infer, there must be a justification in the reading passage. There must be something that in the reading passage suggests to you that that is the case. But here, this is not even mentioned, so this is not the inference. 2, it was written primarily in iambic pentameter. God knows what is iambic pentameter. I have no idea. And that is important. Why? Because in the reading passage, we are not talked about this. No mention actually is made again on what material Herman Melville wrote his poetry or work. If you are a fan of this person and you know, hey, but I can tell you that he actually wrote his poetry and novels in iambic pentameter, well, good to know, but in the reading passage, it's not mentioned. Nothing suggests to us that he wrote in iambic pentameter, or if he wrote in rocks, or he wrote in paper, nothing, not at all, nothing. So this cannot be an inference, again, because the passage doesn't suggest you anything, doesn't give you any information. So without information, you cannot infer, okay? C, it did not yield a significant profit for Melville. This is the correct answer. Let me tell you why. Look at what the passage tells you. It says, his novels had extremely low sales, and Melville had to quit writing novels because no one agreed to publish them. In an effort to make more money from his writing, he chose to publish poetry. Okay, so let's see the information they give us. They say he wrote novels, nobody wanted to purchase them, and he didn't win money. He didn't earn money, excuse me. He was not receiving money because of his novels because nobody purchased them. Nobody wanted to buy his novels. So what did he do? He moved on to writing poetry. Why? It says here, in an effort to make more money from his writing. He wanted to write poetry because he wanted more money. Now, sadly, what does the passage tell us at the end? These poems, however, were as unpopular as his novels and sold scarcely any copies. So, reason about this. If he didn't sell copies of his novels and he didn't receive money, and that was the reason why he moved towards poetry. Even his poetry, nobody purchased his poems anyways, then what can you infer? That he didn't receive money, that it did not yield a significant profit for Melville. If when he was writing novels, he didn't receive money because nobody purchased his novels, the same is going to apply for his poetry. If nobody purchases poetry, well, of course, it means that nobody, what? Excuse me. It means that he didn't receive very much money. If nobody wanted to purchase his poetry, what does it mean? He didn't receive money. That is what the passage is suggesting, because it gives you information. And with that information, you can say, hey, it did not yield a significant profit for male bio. All right. Is there any question about this one, dear students? It's clear. What about this one?
Yes, it left me a little bit of doubts too, because the option D was also very close. So
Yes.
that's why I say that this part in the TOEFL in simulation too, it's very confusing, because of course the
Okay.
two first options is not, it has nothing to do, but it's always another option that makes you
Mhm.
doubt.
Yes. Right. But for example, let us think about the fourth one, Lucia. What does it say? It says it was male bio's only possible way of making money. But I ask you, I mean, is there any part in the reading passage that tells you that the only thing male bio knew how to do was writing? I mean, there is nothing. I mean, if it's, for example, tells you something like, sadly, male bio did not how to do anything else, or sadly, male bio suffered an accident and he couldn't dedicate himself to be a sailor, or to be a, I don't know, to be a to be somebody dedicated to commerce. Nothing is mentioned, right? So as I say, this is something that you could imagine. Maybe, hey, but maybe Mel Bio was somebody who did not how to do anything else. But it's not something you can infer, because nothing in the passage suggests you that this was the only thing he knew how to do. Or nothing tells you that he was, for example, handicapped, or that he was somebody who had some trouble in his physical body and he couldn't dedicate himself to, as I say, to be a sailor, to be a commerce people. So, as I say, it's a matter of thinking. What does the passage tell you? Does it give you information to think about a possible option? And in this case, I think that the fourth one, it also tells us anything. So because it doesn't tell us anything about his possibilities, his abilities, apart from writing, so we cannot infer this one. But I understand you, of course. By practice, you're going to get this criteria that I have right now. That, hey, but it doesn't tell anything, right? It doesn't say anything. So I go for the one that allows me to infer a yes. This one is the only one that, yes, indeed, is telling me this could be the case because it gives the information. But I understand, you're right, Lucia. It's complicated, but the criteria is there. Is something here suggesting you that it was his only ability or nothing? So that could not be the correct answer. What about you, Sergio? Raisa, any question?
No, no, no. It's clear.
Right. Okay, fantastic. Raisa?
It's a little complicated for me.
Okay. No, I understand you. Don't worry, dear students. You know, it's complicated, certainly. This is why this is a very prestigious exam. Just, you know, people who really practice this and dedicate themselves to this, they succeed. So, but if you understand how to do it, for me, it's fantastic, right? Of course, it's a matter of learning how to do it in practice. Now, let's go to the last type of question that we're going to discuss, okay, this class. And then we're going to finalize today's class, and tomorrow we're going to continue with the rest, okay? Let me, I just want to write to my students that I'm going to be a little bit delayed. Give me 1 second. Then we continue. Second. Okay, fantastic. So, as I was mentioning, last type of question for today's class, essential information question. This is very simple, okay? In this one, I think that you're not going to have any problem because it's super simple. In this type of question, you will be asked to convey the same information than a given portion, but using different words, all right? Now, it's important for you to remind that the correct answer must convey all the information given in the other portion, not just some. In simple words, did it ever happen to you that somebody told you something like, could you please say that with different words so that I can understand it? Basically, that is the task you have here. ETS is going to give you a sentence, a portion of a reading passage, and it's going to give you some options. And they're going to tell you, please express the same information of this highlighted sentence with other words following the options we give you. They're going to give you some options, and with different words, you need to express the same information that them a highlighted sentence. Let me show you. For example, in this case, let us just read the highlighted sentence, okay? Because again, there is a reason for this. I'm gonna tell you why. But let us just read the highlighted sentence in this case with yellow, okay? It says, between industrialization, the reduced population of Native Americans, and the segregation of them into the reservations, all of this contributed to the end of Indian trade. I repeat, between industrialization, the reduced population of Native Americans, and the segregation of them into the reservations contributed to the end of Indian trade, right? Now, this is the sentence that we are going to be asked about. Let us read the question. As you can see on the left side, it says, the sentence in paragraph 6, between industrialization, the reduced population of Native Americans, and the segregation of them into the reservations contributed to the end of Indian trade is most similar to, and as I say, they give you 4 options. And these sentences try to express an idea that all of them, of course, are trying to confuse you, and they're trying to say, hey, I am the one who expresses this information the better. Choose me, right? But you need to choose the one that conveys, as I say, all the main points of this highlighted sentence. And as I'm going to show you now, it's very important. The correct response does not omit anything, no omite nada. No information that is a main idea of the highlighted sentence is obviated in the correct response. So remember that all these options, as I say, will probably convey accurate information. All these possible responses are going to give you some information that it is mentioned in this highlighted sentence that we are trying to express with different words. All right. Let us read the answers so you can see what I mean by this difference. First option, Indian trade came to an end because of segregation, industrialization, and declining populations. Is this sentence expressing the main points of the highlighted sentence? We're going to see. The United States industrialized their production, segregated from the Native Americans, and entered conflicts that decreased the Native American population. We're going to see. Native Americans did not wish to follow industrialization and segregated into the reservation. And fourth, Native Americans wished to follow industrialization and segregated into the reservation. Which of these sentences expresses the same information? Of course, not with the same words, right? But because if it were with the same words, obviously there wouldn't be a necessity for this question because the same words would be exactly the same, right? So which response expresses the same general and main ideas of this sentence with different ones, right? That is what we're asking. Now, as I say, and if you notice, all of these sentences, all of these responses talked about something that was mentioned in this highlighted sentence, right? So that's the reason why all of them are going to express something that is true, even if it is super, super little, super, super scarce, but they're always going to mention something that is true. So don't let yourself to be convinced too quickly, okay? How can you identify the correct answer among all those responses that appear to convey information that it is indeed in our highlighted sentence? By the way, this highlighted sentence is always going to be highlighted as well in the exam, so don't worry. You're always going to be reading just the highlighted sentence, and that is something that I recommend to your students. Whenever having this question, just read the highlighted sentence. Don't read the context, don't read anything else, just the highlighted sentence. Why? Because if you read something that is in any other part of the reading passage, you are going to get confused. Why? Because you're going to try to look for an answer that includes the information of all the reading passage. But notice, that is not what they are asking you for. They are asking you for expressing the information of the highlighted sentence, not of the entire reading passage. So remind, just read what it is within the reading passage, okay? Not within the context, previous and after the highlighted passage or the highlighted sentence, okay? Just the highlighted sentence. Now, the correct answer will not omit any information of the portion. No va a omitir información importante of the reading passage. It will not, nor it will pay too much attention to a single element and misrepresenting the others. Because there is a possibility that one of the answers talks about one point made in the highlighted sentence, but it just concentrates and focuses on that point and leaves the rest without consideration. So when you see that, there is a red flag. There is an incorrect response. Why? Because, as I say, there is balance in the correct answer. it talks about all the main points. It doesn't concentrate just about one thing and leaves the rest as, we're not even going to mention this because we're just going to concentrate on this. That is an incorrect response. The correct response conveys all the main points of the highlighted sentence, and it doesn't omit, nor it doesn't concentrate too much on something so that so that you leave the rest without consideration. Okay. Second, you can certainly read the immediate context of your requested portion, but it will be more convenient if you remit to examine only the sentence or portion you want to respond about. This is what I told you. Just read the highlighted sentence. Okay. So now let us try to apply this criteria. Now, for example, I'm going to tell you right from the beginning, the correct response here is the first one. Indian trade came to an end because of segregation, industrialization, and declining populations. Why? Let us read the highlighted sentence again. It says, between industrialization, the reduced population of Native Americans, and the segregation of them into the reservations contributed to the end of Indian trade. It's basically saying us that there were three factors that led us to the Indian segregation, to the end of the Indian trade. What were those factors? Industrialization, reduced population of Native Americans, and their segregation. Those were the three factors that influenced the end of Indian trade or provoked the end of Indian trade. That is what the highlighted sentence is basically saying, right? In simple words. So I ask you, is this first option expressing that information? Yes, it is. Indian trade came to an end because of segregation, industrialization, and declining populations. As you can see, it mentions all the main ideas. Now, please, it's not necessary here to be super picky. Of course, it doesn't mention all the information. It doesn't say, for example, it doesn't mention things like, for example, I don't know, the segregation of them, right? It doesn't use the same words. Of course it doesn't, right? Because if it were using the same words, it would be super easy to identify it. But as I say, it's not necessarily the same words, exactly the same expressions. It's necessary that the correct response has all the main ideas with different words, of course, and presents all the information that is important in the highlighted sentence. And as I say, what is important in this highlighted sentence? There were three factors that led to the end of Indian trade. Industrialization, population of Native Americans, there is the reduction of population of Native Americans, and the segregation of them. It mentions all of that, so this is the correct answer. What about the second one? The US industrialized their production, segregated from Native Americans, and entered conflicts that decreased the Native American population. You know why this is incorrect? This is incorrect because it's focusing too much in the US. The United States is this one, the United States did this, the United States had a conflict. Basically, it's talking about the United States. But if you look at the sentence, our highlighted sentence, it doesn't talk about the US. Not at all, right? It just talks about three factors that led to the end of Indian trade. It doesn't talk about the US. So because in this case, it's talking about something that was not even mentioned in our highlighted sentence, this is incorrect. The third one as well, Native Americans did not wish to follow industrialization and segregated into the reservation. This is false as well. Why? Because in our highlighted sentence, it doesn't say anything about the position of the Native Americans towards industrialization. It just says that because of industrialization, they ended or they segregated into the reservations. It just says that. It doesn't say if they wish it, if they were agreeing with it, if they like it. No, it doesn't say anything. It just says that because of it, they ended with the Indian trade. That's it. So this is an incorrect response again, because it's talking about something that was not even present, and it's confusing information, right? Is there any question, dear students? Is this one clear? Lucia?
Yeah,
Sergio?
now it's more clear because you know that you have to maintain on the information. So we have to practice.
Yes. Sergio, Raisa, any question about this one?
No, I think we only had to read the sentence, no?
Yes, exactly. Raisa?
For me, it's easier than the other one.
Yes, certainly. It's easier. As I told you, this is an easy one. So Fantastic. So if you understood, I'm going to be super happy. We're going to stop here, okay, today's class. Tomorrow we're going to continue with the types of questions, and then we're going to continue with the practice, okay? So please, I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to tell your assistants here, students, please don't go. Help me with this traditional poll that we always feel. You know that you help me a lot, okay, by feeling it positively. So please help me with that. Look at your screen. And now I'm going to tell your assistant. So please listen to your name. If you have any question, please say it. You have time to do it right now. Let me see. Students inform. Okay, so it's here present. It's here present Raiza Bolivia Guzman.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Raiza. What about Lucia Gabriela Aguirre?
Present.
Thank you very much, Lucia. And finally, Sergio Andres Heredia.
Present.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, dear Sergio. There we are. So, thank you very much, dear students, for your responses. That's all for today's class. And as I say, we are going to continue tomorrow with the type of questions. Please, I see you tomorrow. It's a very important class. And have a wonderful night, okay?
Thank you, Carlos. Bye, Sergio. Bye, Raisa. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow,
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you. Thank you very